Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Adventures of a Real Estate Investor. I'm Susie.
And I'm Michael, and we're excited you joined us for this adventure.
So today I'm super excited because I have another GoBundance sister and she just fills my heart with joy. So I'm very, very, very happy to have Tarah Fernandes on the podcast with us today. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm so excited to be here with my ghost sister and Michael too, of course.
Give me your ghost.
Yeah, right.
Awesome.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, a little bit like I met Tara through GoBundance. It is just a group that I'm so very thankful to be a part of just because I have met like other women who are very entrepreneurial, other women who are very growth minded, and other women who are just actually really vulnerable. And so I am just thankful that we were both in the same place at the same time in order to meet.
Yeah, GoBundance is wonderful. And especially for we just so happen to be in real estate, but I feel like a lot of real estate women flock to GoBundance. And sometimes it can be a little bit of a dime, you know, there's not very many women in real estate. So it's kind of fun to just see all of us flock to one group.
Totally. I agree with that.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, Susie knows a lot about you through GoBundance. And now that I am your temporary ghost sister for the next 30 minutes, so I'd like to learn more about you. And so would our adventurous family. Would you mind sharing with our listeners a little bit more about you and your background and why you started investing in real estate?
Yeah, absolutely. So me and my husband have a home buying business. We purchase single families, land, small multifamily, and commercial. And we got our start a handful of years ago, and it's really just taken off from there. We've got a big team, and so it's kind of just taken off. But before that, I was pretty much most of my 20s, I was in a W-2 healthcare IT job, just worked a very normal, I did what I was supposed to do. I went to a good college to get a good job and got a good job and, worked hard throughout my entire 20s. And I got to a point where my husband and I were both traveling a lot for work. And I was just like, man, and not the fun kind of travel like you guys do. Get in an airplane and wake up at 3 a.m., get in an airplane to go to a different state to then, just be in meetings all day and then fly home at midnight. It's not very fun. And I just got to a point where I didn't want that life if and when we were to have kids. I wouldn't want to miss soccer games or any of that. So we started thinking about, okay, what were some other things that we can do as kind of like a side hustle to generate some passive income? And real estate has always been on my mind. I just did nothing about it. And so we kind of came up with a game plan of, okay, if I can grab, one or two rentals every year for the next 5 years, then I'll have, a small package of homes that would generate enough passive income to where, I didn't need to travel for work or I could quit my job and do a side gig, something like that. So that was the initial plan getting into real estate. And so we had marketed for some rentals, got like onesie, twosie, but it was too slow for us. Once we kind of dip our toes in, we really want to just dive in. So we ended up joining different groups and just trying to learn as much as we could about real estate. And we started marketing. And all of a sudden we got a whole bunch of real estate deals. We were like, shoot, this is working. And these real estate deals, not all of them we wanted to keep ourselves. They just weren't in our buy box. But I had spent all this marketing money. I wasn't just going to let them go. So that's where we kind of transitioned into wholesaling, which is probably, I would say 90% of our business. We wholesale. And that has really it's taken off. So something that I didn't even know or want to do was wholesale ended up being the bread and butter of our business. So fast forward to the day, we've got a team of 8. We are in the North Texas region. We buy homes. So that's my story in a nutshell.
That's awesome. Would you mind sharing with our listeners, for people who don't know what wholesaling is, just a quick breakdown of what that is?
Yeah, sure. So wholesaling is finding a property and getting it under contract, and then you assign that contract to an end buyer. So I am basically the person in the middle where I negotiate my contract with the seller. They want to sell. I negotiate it. I now have the contract. And then I've got a whole bunch of buyers who want that particular house. And so I market it out. And if they want it, I assign the contract to them.
Cool. And you said you did this for a single family, land, small multi, and also commercial stuff. Do you wholesale all that, or is that? Yeah.
Yes, yes. So we started off with single family and we still do predominantly single family. I would say probably 85, 90% of it is still single family, but we do scatter in land because land is just so easy. There's no, there's not a house that you have to walk through and everyone's got their own opinion of like, oh no, this needs to be fixed or the foundation is wonky or no, the foundation isn't wonky. And so we do land. Some commercial, we plan on hitting a lot more commercial this year. Again, with our Go Abundance is getting a lot of shout outs today. My husband is on the Go Abundance, Go Bros side and the huge network of commercial guys. So we're going to be working with them to kind of beef out our commercial end of things. Cool. So yeah, those are the three that we kind of dabble in.
So I have a quick question. So like sometimes you hear, I guess I would say buyers be like wholesalers. I don't want to say crooks, but for lack of a better word, like
Yes.
wholesalers aren't the people you want to work with, blah, 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 blah. Well,
Yeah.
what impact are you bringing to your buyers?
Yes. So wholesalers have a bad reputation. We get that all the time. And just like at any industry, doctors,
Yeah.
attorneys, you think of any of it and there's bad apples in every bunch. But what we bring and what we're known for are our honest numbers. We don't inflate rehab numbers. Where most wholesalers get in trouble and they don't last long is they will spit out a deal to all of their buyers and their numbers are they're just trash. It should be a $40,000 rehab and they're saying it's only $20,000. Or what the ARV should be is, 200 and they're marketing it at like 250, 275. You start getting a reputation of like, well, their numbers, I don't trust you. So those guys very quickly, and especially the last 12 months as the market has started to flip into a buyer's market, they've gone away. They've closed shop. So that good and bad. But from my perspective, I want to be honest and upfront from the get-go for both my sellers and my buyers. There are a lot of sellers that call us and they're like, hey, yeah, like I'm thinking about selling my house, but I don't really need to sell it and I would like to get top dollar for it. Then we say, hey, I've got a list of agents that are wonderful. Like put it on the MLS. You don't need me. I have a very specific skill set on if you need to sell it quickly, I can make that happen. But if not, like put it up on the MLS. So I think just being that trustworthy source that we've worked really hard to have good numbers, that's made us stand out.
Something I think too to add is that like in really any industry, right? Like it takes a lot of time for like that build up phase, right? So where there are seller or buyers on the other end of wholesaling, like they haven't taken the time to like create those relationships with the sellers over here. Do you get what I'm saying? So like you've taken the time to create relationships, like you have the team that can like give you an ARV or the rehab price. Like there is a gap of deciding what you want to do, whether it's burring or wholesaling, like all that education up front too, like makes a pretty big difference. Because wholesaling like is not easy whatsoever.
Yeah, it can be, it's very competitive because your floor for getting in is nothing. You don't have any licenses. It's costs you next to nothing to get into it. So anyone can do it. But yeah, we're pulling comps and understanding the market street by street all the time. So for someone who is a buyer who maybe only buys, 2 or 3 houses a year, they're not going to know what the, current market is. So they can use us as a resource of knowing, okay, I would suggest you can do all these different types of rehabs. I would suggest only doing this, this, and this because the market is only wanting. Yeah. So yeah, definitely just being in the trenches day to day adds just us as an extra resource for our buyers.
That's awesome. I have a question about land stuff. So we don't talk about land a lot on here. And I guess my question is more geared around like, what kind of land are you looking for? Is it like pre-parceled, zoned, things like that? Or would you look for just raw land that needs to be zoned and everything like that?
So we look for both. For my buy box, it's a little bit different, but we will do campaigns for everything. I tend to steer away from like the smaller lot, depending on where they're at. I will do larger lots, but it really just I kind of just blanket the marketing campaigns, and then depending on what comes at me, just trying to figure out if there's a need or not. We've sold to land developers. We've kept land ourselves to just sit on for, it's wait 10 years and it'll be worth a lot more. So
Okay.
it really just, yeah, where you're paying taxes on it for sure. It really just depends on what our buyers, we've got a much smaller list for those buyers, but just kind of figuring out what is it zoned? What is my buyer looking for? And then depending on what comes in, going from there.
What's your typical land buyer looking for? Like a place to like build a house on, maybe put a duplex or a quadplex on or something like that, or just all.
No, they're mainly developers. So we'll take, you know, anything from 20 acres to 70 acres, and depending on how it's zoned, they'll take it as long as there's water, water and utilities connected to there. And if they're not, then the price is going to be reflected of that. Um, then that's what they're looking for. But we've done land deals where just super wonky land deals where they're just split next to railroads. And so it just is weird. So we've actually just put those on MLS and wholesale it versus wholesale it. Where you buy it. So I now own it. And then I just put it right, but my agent puts it right back up on the MLS, and some individual will want to buy it. So just for wonky land deals like that it's typically how we do it. Yeah.
How did you get into your first one for land?
My first for land, how did we trying to remember what our first one was? I had pulled a marketing campaign. So just like I do for single families, I'll pull a land, basically a list of records that are land records, and I will market to those. And I think it may have been a 35-acre piece. Trying to remember what it was. I think it was a 35-acre piece that we got under contract. And then since it was our first one, we were like, oh shoot, do we have buyers for that? Like, I don't know if a single family buyer wants a land piece. Yeah. And so we have a substantial buyers list. So we actually just sent that out to that buyers list, and someone grabbed it. So yeah, that's cool.
I have a question. Marketing, obviously, because you said you wanted to buy one or two places at a time, and then you realized your marketing strategy was what was killing it and getting so much coming in. That's why you decided to also focus on wholesaling. With that, there's a lot of people out there that struggle with the marketing piece of wholesaling. I'm not asking you to give away any proprietary things right now, but what are some tips that you have for people who are listening who are like, yeah, I pull lists and I send out mailers and things like that. Like, what do you find that works the best when you pull those lists? What are you looking for in the list, number one? And number two, what are you sending to those people on the list?
Sure. And I'm an open book, no proprietary stuff. When I do pull lists, I will pull big lists, like big absentee owners with equity lists, like they're very large lists. And then I'll also pull niche lists, like expired listings, if you've got liens, different county records, if they're going for foreclosure, divorce, whatnot. So a whole bunch of different types of lists. I narrow those down by equity. So they need to have a little bit of equity for us to work with them, typically 35% to 100% outright ownership. And then lately, I have been narrowing that down even more just because of how the market is changing to square footage. I want smallish houses, 2,200 square feet and less. And then the year built of 2015 and older. We used to get a bunch of calls from like people who just built their house, and they're like, yeah, I'll sell it. And I'm like, but you have no equity in it. So there's no point. So I'll pull those. And then I think the key where people get hung up is that they'll pull this list, they'll send out the mail, but they'll only send it out to 750 records. And then they're like, I didn't get a deal off of it. It's like, well, okay, if you're sending mail is based on volume. So you need to be sending higher volume pieces. So for us, our calculation is for every 2,500 mailers, we get a deal. So there is a sense of, you do need to do volume. But for me, our marketing is pretty much all mailing. We don't do cold calling. We don't do texting. That's just and it works for a lot of people. There are a lot of very successful, very like well-known wholesalers that do very well in those spaces. And it works great for them. For me, it's just easier to dump mail and then wait for the phone to ring. Like that's just way easier for me. So I would rather dump 2,500 letters and know that I'm going to get a deal off of that. And, an average wholesale fee is $15,000. So if you've spent $3,000 in mail to get $15,000, to me, that's a good ratio.
Yeah.
Totally.
A follow up question to that. So for the 2,500 mailers, like how much are you paying per mailer? Number one. And number two, part B of this question is what is your mailers? What do your mailers look like? Is it like, the handwritten, machine
hmm hmm
handwritten, or is it like, yellow paper, black bold letters, something like that? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Black makes me laugh because I was going to ask you about Bumblebee.
I know I should do black and yellow for Bumblebee. No, so we use a company, full plug. They're good buddies of mine. That we use a company called Ballpoint Marketing, and they are the handwritten mailers. When I first started out, I physically wrote my letters, and oh my gosh, it took forever. And I tried outsourcing it. I'd hire girls from high school, like, hey, can you write like 200 letters a week? And they'd be good for like 2 weeks and they're like, I can't do this. So that was just, I threw that out because way too time consuming. So yeah, we use Ballpoint Mail or Ballpoint Marketing for our mail. Their postcards are, I want to say like 80 cents a piece ish. Don't hold me to it. And then their letters range between like $1.20 and $1.80, just depending on like postage or if you do first class cursive versus not regular. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just did the quick math on that. So if you send out 2,500, well, if you expect to get one deal from 2,500 mailers, you're paying 80 cents for postcard mailers. If you are doing postcard, that's $2,000, right? That you're spending. A
Mhm.
lot of people are like, oh my God, I'm spending so much money on mailers. I'm getting like one deal, right? Like this is the reality, people who are out there listening. You have to spend money to make money, right? So yeah, just keep that in mind.
Yeah. Everyone, that's all I constantly get feedback of mailers are so expensive. It's like, yes, they are, but they're the most efficient. So I would rather spend a little bit more money up front to get to know that I'm getting a deal out of it versus having to go through the thousands of calls or texts or whatnot that happen to be way cheaper, but then it's just not worth it
Then you have
to
to
me
deal
at
with the
least.
yeah, and then you have to deal with the backlash of people when you blast out text messages. I think it's illegal in a lot of states now, but yeah,
Yeah.
blasting out text messages, you get the hate messages back, like "Leave me alone."
Right, right. Well, and I don't like getting cold calls. So
Yeah.
why would I cold call if I don't like receiving them? Like it just, to me, again, people are very successful that do it. Yeah, there is some litigation around text blast and some cold calling, but yeah, to me, mailers is just way easier.
So something though that stood out to me is Bumblebee. So I want you to chat about that a little bit, just like how you chose your name in general, right? Because like Michael and I, coming from adventurous real estate investors, like we have a lot of people comment on that because it's like, wow, it is one of a kind. And so I truly believe like you do have to be one of a kind, like within your brand and your brand name and your marketing. So can you just explain how you chose your name and what significance?
Yeah, yeah. And I love your branding. I think it's absolutely fabulous. I came from a marketing background in my day job, and branding is my least favorite exercise. I dislike it like so bad. We spent probably a good, I don't know, 4 to 6 weeks just trying to come up with different names. And we wanted to use our last name, but then we didn't want to be tied to it. And we would just a whole bunch of different things. And we finally, I don't know how we came up with Bumblebee. I think we were trying to figure out like what would be friendly enough and something that's very highly recognizable to where people remember it, but it's not so streamlined to where people forget. So like in our area, there's a bunch of like DFW home buyers, Dallas home buyers, we buy home Dallas, something that's it's forgettable because there's 5 to 7 other, competitors that have the same exact name. It's just inverted. So with Bumblebee, although weird, it's a little quirky, right? It's got nothing to do with real estate, but it's memorable and people remember, oh yeah, you're the Bumblebee one. Like, yes, yes, we are. So that's it. It's just stuck and it's cutesy. So
Yeah. No, it is. And it is that stick. I almost said it does
It
stuck.
stings.
Oh, it stings. Like it stings.
Friendly, but also aggressive at the same time.
yeah.
But it is like you do need to be able to stand out and have people remember your name, right? So like keeping that in mind.
Yeah,
Going
when building a brand. Yeah.
Totally.
One final question before we move into the final or the adventurous 4 questions. So obviously wholesaling and all this work and stuff like that is very, very active, right? And you said you
Mhm.
wanted to get into this to be passive, right? To be able to have more time freedom and stuff like that. So you could be home for your
Mhm.
kids and stuff like that and stop traveling and doing all this work. How are you or what are you doing? Like once you get all this active income, like how are
Mhm.
you then turning around and investing that passively? Or how are you doing that?
Yes. Yes, 100%. So wholesaling is a business, right? So it's very active. And we are in the process of streamlining all that with our team. So I probably work 5 to 10 hours a week on my wholesaling business. So I think it just depends on like how you define passive. That's fairly passive for me just because I enjoy working. So like 5 to 10 hours a week, I'm like, yeah, no big deal. But yes, we invest, we've got over 100 units between single family storage, small multifamily. So we took, like I said, since we spent all that money for marketing, we handpicked the ones we want to keep and then we wholesale the rest because the end goal is and will always be passive income. So we've built a pretty solid portfolio of single family and multifamily commercial that helps support our lifestyle.
I like it. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
10 for 10 would recommend passive income.
Yes, 100%. That is the end all be all.
Absolutely. It's always like this. I always think of it as like a linear model, right? As the amount you have invested, I'm going to try to explain this model, whatever, but it's basically the area under the curve, right? And as you progress, if the x-axis is time, as you progress to the right, the amount you're spending on active and the amount you're spending on passive, but passive is the area under the curve. It should be growing as you continue to wane as the active investments wane, right? So anyways,
Exactly.
maybe our editor put up a cool graph on there, but
Love it.
anyways, we are moving towards the end of the show, Tara. So this brings us to the Adventures 4. These are 4 questions we ask all of our guests. So if you are ready, we will begin.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yay.
So the first question we have for you is, where is one place you wish to travel to and why?
I would say Switzerland, and it is actually on my list to book travel this year. I need to force myself to do that because I am the queen of like, I'm going here this year, and then it doesn't happen. So Switzerland it has been on my bucket list. I would love to go. Is it called the glacier train? But that gorgeous train that has views of like, oh, I want to go. So that's on my bucket list.
I'm holding you accountable to that.
Yes. Yes, please do. Please do.
So then our next question is, what is one thing on your bucket list and how are you leveraging real estate investing to achieve it besides Switzerland?
So one thing, can I cheat and say I've checked it off my bucket list?
Sure. Yeah.
And it's because of real estate, I was able to check it off. So I am a crazy horse girl. I love horses. I grew up riding. And, when you go to college and get a big girl job, I couldn't ride. Just was a expensive resource or expensive hobby. So being able to get into real estate and build this passive income and active income, but with this passive income, it has allowed me to get back into horses and ride pretty much daily. I went riding about 2 hours before this call. So that has been on my bucket list forever. And I was able to get back into it about a little over a year ago.
That makes me happy. I'm so glad. I'm so happy for you.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been fun.
Yeah, cool. So the third question we have for you is, what is the one piece of advice for someone who wants to start passively investing in real estate?
I would say get to build a relationship with someone who is already doing it, whether it's a GP or an individual who is creating these deals. Get to know them because you're not only investing in that property, you're really investing in them. They're going to make or break that passive income for you. So get to know them, get to trust them. And that would be my biggest piece.
Absolutely. 100% agree with you. I
Yeah.
think in the past several years, it was in 2021, 2022, too. And there's been a lot of deals like floating around as people are getting into it and stuff like that. And there's, oh, these numbers or projections and things like that. People are like, oh, just to pick the one with the best projections. You like don't even look at the team, right? So I think it's very important to vet the operators. If you're investing passively through syndications, that's kind of what we're talking about. So yeah,
Totally.
very important.
Yeah. What's their track record? What's their exit plan? Like all of that. It's very important.
Yeah.
And if they're stress testing and things like that. So absolutely.
If you ever want a more comprehensive list, Michael and I can make one because there's like all the things people need to look at, but it's true, right? Because so many people weren't.
Yeah.
Something to think about now. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, our last and final question, which is my favorite, is if you had unlimited resources available to you, how would you leave an impact?
Oh gosh, I would love to teach financial independence. I think I think everyone complicates it so much. And it's like this intangible thing that you know, is hard to get. And it's really not. So I would love to be able to teach others how to kind of build what you guys have built and what we've built. And I would love to teach that to other people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. It makes a big difference. I mean, I know I've kind of talked about this before, but like when people have that financial independence or even getting there, like the things that they start to think about are completely changed, right? Because they're no longer in like fight or flight. Like they can actually like have a more creative mindset. And I think that like makes wonders to the world, right? Because when you have more creativity in the world, there's just so much more that is proactive rather than reactive.
Mhm.
So it's huge.
Yeah, you're in a state of flow and being able to help others, which provides more value. And yeah, that's a good spot to be in.
Totally.
Yeah. Absolutely. Right. Well, Tarah, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Before we end it, would you mind sharing with our adventurous family where they can learn more about you or connect with you?
Sure. I'm on Instagram or Facebook, Tarah_Ferns, FERNS. You'll find me there.
I like that.
Yeah, I do too. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm
It's
so
been
happy
fun.
I got to spend this time with you, and I'm so happy Michael finally got to meet you. So thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. Until next time, explore more adventure ways.
Woo!